you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Bertrand Bayou, and I organize the meetup. So, can you please switch off your microphone and your video if you are not a speaker? Thank you. So I'm gonna wait maybe 1-2 minutes because people is coming. Then I will make a short introduction about the Open Transport Meetup. As some of you don't know this event, so we've got a big program with 5 presentations tonight, and a great topic about data mobility data, and ecological transition. How can it boost the ecological transition with an impact on our lives and on the planet? So I will start. So the introduction of the meetup. As I said, I'm Bertrand Bayou. I'm working as a Vice President Communication of Keolis Digital Subsidiary, Kizio Digital. And I'm organizing the Open Transport Meetup for a long time, for nearly 7 years or 8 years. So it's a long story, the Open Transport Meetup. And first, we at Kizio Digital, we are doing a traveler information platform called Navicia. And we decided at this time to open source the source code. So we decided to organize this kind of meetup, Open Transport Meetup. First, it was Navicia Meetup, and it was only for people using Navicia, our open source software. And then we decided to talk about topics, mobility innovation, and not only Navicia. So we call it Open Transport Meetup, and we organize first in bars with 20, 30 people, and then in other rooms, with more people, sometimes 100 people in different countries also. We went to London, we went to Brussels, and in a lot of towns in France. Can you shut down your microphone, please? Thank you. And it's important, this kind of event, because anybody can organize an open transport meetup, not only in France, and that's the case in Germany. You've got the Open Transport Meetup virtual. They organize it on their own, and sometimes they invite us to talk about topics, and we could do the same. So it's an initiative to share knowledge, to share ideas. It's like an ecosystem of different stakeholders. And what is different to understand, it's we want to share also tools and data and code with other people, because it's important to open these resources, these mobility resources, as they can be usable, useful, and also used. You will find all the information about Open Transport Meetup, all the presentation. There's a lot, maybe 100, on the Fabrique des mobilités wiki. This is one of the partners. And what is very important to understand also, this ecosystem, there are people reusing, contributing to Navicia, our open source platform, but we also contribute to other projects, other open source projects like Valhalla, for example, and or OpenStreetMap. So it's very important to understand the power of this ecosystem, and not only to talk, but sometimes to do business, to make innovation easier. And what is important to understand is that the meetup are more the times co-organized with other partners to develop local communities and also to facilitate meetings. So I will let you introduce, Mathieu, maybe the Innovation Week, because this meetup is part of the Keolis Innovation Week.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Bertrand, for inviting me. So I'm Mathieu. I'm head of Open Innovation at Keolis headquarters. Yes, and as Bertrand mentioned, this meetup is indeed a part of a first whole week dedicated to innovation at Keolis, with different events such as this one, but also local events in most of most of the territories in which we are established. And of course, innovation in our industry is crucial for a whole host of reasons. Of course, to improve the passenger experience, to adapt to this particular sanitary situation, and also, of course, to contribute to the energy transition, which is a major commitment for us, and of course, basically to differentiate ourselves. And by organizing this first Innovation Week, we really wanted to highlight the fact that our innovation approach is first and foremost based on our territories. And that's why we have organized for the first time awards to reflect this dynamic as closely as possible to our customers and passengers. And during the submission campaign, we have gathered no more than 135 projects, and 12 were selected. And Bertrand, your project was submitted and selected by the jury to be a finalist. So congratulations! And we will have 5 projects will be awarded on Friday. And just a few words on these awards. What is really interesting to mention is the diversity of the innovations that were submitted. Of course, some of them are technological. But for example, how we can use neural networks to improve passengers' predictions on board in Netherlands. But some others are more dealing with new management approach, thanks to data in Australia, or a new process to improve security passengers and collaborations and for collaborators in the UK. So just last word for a decentralized group like ours. All these innovations we have gathered is a strong asset for all our territories, and yes, a powerful enabler to accelerate the replication of innovation that makes sense in other locations. So yes, and just if you want to stay connected with us and to stay in touch and to be updated with our innovation activity and actuality, please connect to our brand new open innovation platform, which is innovation.keolis.com. Thank you, Bertrand.
Thank you, Mathieu. So we'll start the meetup. There are 5 presentations, 15 minutes each one, 10 minutes plus 5 minutes for question and answers. You can ask your question on the chat, write it, and then we will ask it to the speakers. So the first one is Martin Regnier. Martin, the floor is yours. So you're going to talk about my transport impact. So I let you tell more about your project.
Thank you, Bertrand. Everybody can see my screen, right? It's okay.
Yes, that's okay.
Yes, great, thank you. So hello, everyone. Thank you, Bertrand, for the invitation as well. So I'm Martin Regnier. I'm in charge of Datagir service. And maybe before just going to our tool on, as you mentioned, transport and the impact of transport on the environment, just a few words to introduce you to what is Datagir. Because for us, data could be a tool to accelerate the ecological transition. And as a free public services, so that's completely free. We are part of Ademe, the ecological transition. Pardon, sorry, the ecological transition agency, the French agency. Our purpose is to bring environmental information closer to citizens. And for that, we're trying to disseminate Ademe's open environmental data and to provide them to applications or services or every service that could integrate them and could develop new features. You can see at the left of the screen, every service like data, like apps or web services or media could help us to diffuse, to disseminate this data. So basically, we have two sides of an offer. First side is to provide services to apps, so as to give access to open and reliable data so that they can integrate them into application. And we give also resources and support to understand and adopt our data. As to go further than open data. Open data is something which is important and mandatory, but we go further and we try to help application services that could integrate this data, to understand them, to ask questions to our experts, etc., to really understand and integrate again this data to their service, so that they could touch directly their users, the citizens, their users as apps, etc. And I'll show you examples of this data afterwards. But Datagir has also developed open source simulators. It's important that everything is open source. It's free and open source. And I show you these simulators. But what is important is that they are open source, but you can also share them on your platforms and easily integrate them as iframes on every website, whether they be internal websites or external websites. There are many big company or small one that integrate our tool to their websites. So what are their tools? Before going to transport, some teasing, because there we are also other tools on alimentation, for example, like mes fruits et légumes de saison in French, that helps you to search fruit and vegetable of the season to consume fresh and local products all around, all the year. And we also have something maybe closer to what we're talking right now, which we have called Mon Convertisseur CO2 to convert, to translate tons of CO2 into tangible and everyday objects or dimension. You can here, for example, translate, let's say, kilometers of car into something else, or something else into kilometers of cars, for example, food or smartphones, etc. And of course, you can translate the CO2 into the this objects. One of the big simulator we have that we've called Nos Gestes Climat is not only on one topic, but on all main topic we have in our lives. So alimentation, transport, being households, etc. And we've developed it with the Bilan Carbone Association. This the association that leads the methodology of the carbon calculation here in France. And with 5 to 10 minutes interactive and sample questions on your daily habits, you have first how much you weight into CO2 tons, how much you emit every year. To remind, just a reminder, the average is around 10 tons per person of CO2 per person in France. And then we'll give you some advice and concrete actions to reduce this impact. So of course on transport, but not only. And I'm mentioning this one because we're talking about transport, but it's also important to give other view and to compare for the citizens. And we have also one on transport, which is today released a brand new version. So my transport impact is here to let you discover your travel impacts on climate. So you can first just give your distance or directly your trips. It's here also to highlight positive impacts of carpooling when you share your car. And there's also a remote work mode to let you discover the impact of climate that you're avoiding when you work home, when you're not commuting. So this tool again is available through your browser, on your desktop, of course, on your mobile phone. It's a web app, so everybody can install it. It's also available as iframe, as I told you. Here you can see some of the company organizations that have integrated it. It's also available as an API. Here you can see what you can call and get with this API, essentially the emission by transportation means. And as I said previously, it's open, so the code, you can also access the code, help us improve it, why not, or do your tool, base your tool on this code. Here is what I wanted to say. I hope I've been clear enough, but of course, if you have questions, I'm here with pleasure. That's all.
Thank you.
I can't see any questions, but if there is, and of course, you can contact me if you have questions afterwards. Don't hesitate to contact us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Martin. If there's no question, we're gonna talk about Bike Data Project. I wait a few seconds. No, it's okay. Astrid and Ben. Yeah, I see a screen. So it's
Yeah,
up to
hello.
you. From Belgium, you are part of the
Yes.
Open Knowledge Foundation. And
Yes, Bike Data Project is an activity of open knowledge. Belgium. Sorry, I interrupted your introduction, Bertrand.
no, that's okay. The floor is yours.
I dove right into it. Yes, thank you for having us in this impressive lineup. My name is Astrid Steenakers, and my colleague Ben is also here from Open Knowledge. I am the general coordinator of Open Knowledge Belgium. And Ben, you are?
I am a volunteer in the Bike Data Project. I'm also a member of Open Knowledge Belgium and part of the OpenStreetMap Belgium working group within OpenStreetMap, within Open Knowledge Belgium, sorry.
Yes, and Open Knowledge Belgium is an umbrella organization for all kinds of open initiatives in Belgium and beyond. And you can see two examples here of our activities, OpenStreetMap and Open Summer of Code, which will return later in this presentation. So the Bike Data Project aims at aggregating bike data from different apps and sources into one open bike data platform. And the goal is to empower local communities and decision makers to make cities more safe and for bikers, and to make bikers more visible in their cities and smaller places. This project started in Denmark, and it was launched together with this movie, Bikes versus Cars, because the premise is that there are a lot of data on cars and a lot less on bikes. Not enough for local governments to make informed decisions about infrastructure, for example. So Bike Data Project was launched, but the open part of it, the open data, is where we came in and when we took over the project in 2020. And it was, the platform itself was developed as is. During Open Summer of Code 2020, there were students here in Belgium who worked on the platform with Ben as a coach. And then how does it work? I will leave that up to Ben.
Okay, thank you, Astrid, for the introduction. So how does Bike Data Project work? The goal is to collect actual cycling trips in the form of GPS data. So at the moment, the Bike Data Project is one big database, all with cycling trips. So we don't really collect bicycle counters or like bicycle infrastructure, but we purely want to see real bicycle trips and real movements of people who use their bikes on a day-to-day basis. So you can connect your whatever account you have on the website. If you currently go to the website, I have to apologize because currently it is broken. It's very bad to give a presentation in this state, but that's just how it is. It will be fixed soon. So you can go to the website, link your Strava account, Garmin account, Fitbit account, whatever, and it will share your cycling trips with the Bike Data Project. So how does it work? We have different connections with different apps. We collect all the cycling data from there. It goes into one central database, and then we aggregate and publish results. So we have a heat map that we publish. We have a basic statistics of areas that say, for example, how many bicycles, average speeds, stuff like that. And then something that is still a work in progress is the map matching service, where we want to publish bicycle counts and the number of individuals per time period that have passed at a certain link or at a certain moment. So we did this initially, as Astrid said, in 2020. So together with the Brussels mobility. So if you go to if you look at the data, you will see that in Brussels there's a lot of data. That is because we have had a social media campaign get citizens to share their data. So we are pretty sure that if you organize your own campaigns in your own local city, that you will get a lot of contributions there as well. So the first results, well, you can see here that there's already a lot of data that has been collected. I'm not even sure these numbers are currently up to date completely. So this was actually, as I mentioned, quite successful already. And the most important part is that it's open data. So we publish the data as far as we can, because of course we also give users some levels of privacy guarantees. So, for example, the heat map is only visible when there are at least 3 individuals that have passed by a certain location. And we have similar approaches for the other data sets that we publish. But other than that, all of the data is open. And this is to create a level playing field for everyone who wants to use it and to maximize the usefulness of the data. Again, some maps and results. You see there are a lot of trips that have been collected. These are screenshots from Brussels. Feel free to go on the website. On the left is the heat map that you can see for Brussels. Yeah, I recommend you to go and have a look in your own area to see if there's already some data there. What we also do, as I mentioned, the map matching service, we need help with this one. So if anyone can chip in or has some knowledge on how to do this scalable, because we did this for Brussels, but we want to do this for the whole data set. And you can, for one link, see where bicycles come from and where they go to in the database, which is very interesting for new developments and to identify missing links in cycle infrastructure and so on. Yeah, the heat map I already mentioned. Again, some other cities in the world, Bogota, Mexico City, and Wellington. I think that's New Zealand. Yeah, and then our approach. So think globally, act locally. So we want to, we really want to involve other partners internationally, because it is a project from Open Knowledge Belgium, but the main goal is to grow the project. Because it will never accomplish its goal if we stay in our little country, little corner of the world. So please, if you want to get involved, please do so, and you can already organize your own data gathering or data sharing campaigns. Yeah, so one of the well, less technical reasons behind the bike data project is for bicycles to have a voice in data. So as Astrid already mentioned, there's a lot of data about cars, and because that data is there, it gets used a lot. It's considered very important, and it's very visible how many cars there are in all the data sets. So we really want to fix this by also representing bicycles in the data. So it is to empower the bicycle community to have a voice as well at the data level. The next steps, so as I mentioned, we want to publish more aggregated data. So as I said, again, we need help with that. We want to add even more alternatives to contribute data, and then more output and more graphs and more nice stuff to do with the data on the output side as well. We can always do more of that. And then, yeah, we need to translate in more languages. So the more people that get involved, the better. If you know any local applications or local initiatives that gather data, please ask them and get them in touch with us, and we can connect everyone. Yeah, and then spread the word or ask cycling non-governmental enterprises to share or to spread the word. Yeah, what we also really want to do is to have a guideline or a guide to how to start in your own city or area. So that is also a something that we want to do. So yeah, I said it. A lot of my talk was about asking help, and we really do need some help, because currently it's me working on it, and Astrid does it part-time as well, but we have a lot of other stuff to do. So please get involved if you can. If you have some time to help us, you're very welcome to the project. So any questions? That was my presentation. So.
Thanks a lot, Ben and Astrid. Does GeoVelo in France contribute yet? You know GeoVelo?
No, but I remember a previous meetup where we almost got in touch with them and we almost got this started, but we're not quite there yet. So I would be very happy to start this conversation again.
And Antoine from BlaBlaCar is asking if the project is used by other Belgian cities than Brussels.
Yeah, we are working in the province of Flemish, well, one of the Flemish provinces. Let's just say it like that. That they are also going to launch a campaign now, and what we are going to do there is we're going to try and learn how we can generate realistic routes from OpenStreetMap data, but then based on the data coming from Bike Data Project. So we will study the actual trips and then try and see if we can generate simulated trips. And we will do that to see in future scenarios. So what if there's an extra bicycle path, an extra bridge, or something like that, that we can see what the impact could be and what project is the most valuable to invest in. So that is something that we are working on now, yeah.
Okay. Do you have contact also with Fluctuo or other French actors?
No, we have very little contact contacts in France. So yeah, feel free to get us in touch. The email address is right there, so please.
And I will share the presentation after the meetup also on the Fabrique des Mobilités.
That's great. Yeah.
Wiki. Do you have, Maurice is asking, do you have examples of usage of those data for cyclist communities?
One part of the project was in 2020 when it started to also try and involve cycling communities in Brussels directly to see what they could directly do with the data. And we are also in connection with the Belgian, like the Cyclists Union, that's what it's called in Dutch. I don't think it's a very good name, but they represent cyclists in Belgium, and I know that they're also very interested in the project, but at the moment I have to say, no, I have no concrete examples of any activism or stuff like that being done with this data at the moment, no. But yeah,
there's a lot of interest that Ben from for example, IMEC in Belgium, a lot of interest to do something with the data and with the project. But as you mentioned, we want more.
But they're usually companies or people who are interested in mobility professionally, yeah. But not necessarily cycling NGOs or organizations like that. And I think they're definitely one of the people we want to reach, or one of the type of organizations we want to get in. We want to be involved as well. Yeah.
So Olivier is saying quite amazing when you compare data in open cycle map between Flanders and Wallonie. What does it mean?
I think you mean the cycling networks that are on OpenStreetMap that are probably very different. But you see these maps a lot from the Netherlands. There are a lot of cycling networks, but I do think that it is a sort of a biased image, because OpenCycleMap really shows all the networks. I don't think it really shows how good infrastructure is in these areas necessarily. So it's just the government who has created cycling networks, and they are very visible on the map, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the infrastructure is so good. But I'm pretty sure that in Flanders the infrastructure is slightly better, but I am not very sure about that. Just a gut feeling.
Okay, so work in progress in Montreal.
yeah, minus
Also.
20. Ouch.
So if there's no more question, we will go on with Guillaume.
Okay, thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Guillaume, are you okay? Can you share your screen? Thank you. So you're gonna talk about mobility weather reports. So you're based in Lyon. Mobility dashboard, sorry. So the floor is yours. Go.
Okay, thank you for the invitation, Bertrand. Hello. What is mobility dashboard? It's a proof of concept and is inspired by a personal project, meteocovid.com. That is a website that uses open data to track impact of COVID in France and Europe. It offers you a huge amount of data and many ways to visualize it. I made it in 2020. With 1.5 million visitors last year, it became one of the biggest COVID data websites. And it's also used by television and newspaper for the local information. Well, meteocovid, it's a big baby. And it's quite natural that we want to use here in Lyon this strong experience in a dedicated mobility dashboard to aggregate mobility data in order to compare car, bicycle, and public transport in Lyon city, and analyze the impact of COVID pandemic on mobility behavior, especially in public transportation, which has suffered from this COVID crisis. So to do that, we need 3 steps. We first focus on sourcing data and collect them. Then it will be necessary to analyze their quality and process them. And finally, the data visualization tool. First of all, how did we manage to find the necessary data? We first look at the public data offered by some application like Google and Apple Maps, CityMapper, something like that, but it was not very conclusive. So we approach the city of Lyon and the open data program here, and we able to collect car and bicycle count data that it's a counting cell located inside the roadway and the bicycle path. And we fed your dashboard with that data. And for the public data transport part, we have chosen to take ticket validation, that it's our data here in Lyon. So we now have 3 data sets, and we are now facing 2 problems. What is the level of quality and reliability? Without going into details, but here is an example of quality of the data. We have identified that among of counting cells had been stopped several months. As we want to monitor the whole period from the beginning of the COVID until today, we have removed cells that did not have data for the whole period. And after cleaning the data, we normalized them and created an algorithm to display them as an index. And then we use index to determine a utilization rate. At the final point, the data visualization was not a particular difficulty because we used the meteocovid tools that I developed precedently. That's over for the explanation. I will show you some charts. Dashboards is monthly refreshed. It's not a live data, and the last update was on December 21. Here is the rolling average, and an index view for each mode: car, bicycle, and public transport. We can see the fall during the first lockdown in 2020. We can also see in red that the public transport in Lyon has not yet recovered its original level, even though we were pretty close in December. Here, it's a second chart with another view. We see the utilization rate for each mode. Car has regained an important place since the COVID pandemic, but is decreasing between 2020 and 2021. We also create a view on month view, and we find the same result on this other chart, but we can better see the increase in bicycle mode. We have another view with Camembert here to see the change in the utilization rates with the month view. What next with that proof of concept? We now want to add and combine weather data and COVID data to study the connection between mobility, weather, and pandemics situation. If you have question.
Thank you, Guillaume. Congratulations for this work.
Thank you.
It's a side project, and it's
a big one.
Yeah, and it's mobility in France and probably in the world is with a lot of silos, and it's not so easy to know about the mobility you manage. I mean, when you work at Keolis or when you work at another mode like car sharing, I don't know. But it's more difficult to know about other mobilities like you did.
It's hard to find data and compare it.
That's not the same rules. That's not the same usages. So no. That's a great job. So
it's the reason why we study the trends of each mode to obtain the utilization rate.
So I've got a question from Dawood. Does this data help in changing the public transport offering in Lyon?
Yes, it was developed for the marketing here to study the switch between cars and bicycle that we see in France, not just in Lyon, and the impact of télétravail, je sais pas comment on dit en anglais, of distancial work.
Home office.
Home office, yes, and it's interesting to take decision.
So you change things. How did you set the indice zero for all modes?
It's the referential before COVID. Okay. And we have that information because we have do a study, a market study.
Okay, so Raouf with next speaker will get in touch with you, Guillaume.
Okay, no problem.
So, yes, Lancelot is not asking question, but I will ask you. I will answer you, Lancelot. So let's go for the next presentation. If there's no more question. So Raouf, this is your turn. Can you open your microphone? Yes. And share your screen, please?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, from Montreal, Canada. Thanks a lot.
From Montreal, Canada. I'm going to present our open mobility data project, Nos données ouvertes en mobilité. It's created by Coop Carbone and Fabrique de Mobilité Québec, which is two non-profitable organizations. It's financed by public funds and private. The section of the project is the health crisis has highlighted several vulnerabilities related to accessibility of mobility data. The lack of usable data delayed the understanding of travel dynamics and affected the activity of economic actors to quickly choose the right measures. It's 3 years for the realization from January 2021 to December 2023. The objective of the project: better understand new travel habits, implement governance of data shared between Montreal actors, validate the relevance of real-time data collection tool. The key part of the project, we started with telework, working from home, get to know the impact of working from home on the mobility, as well as e-shopping, the private car, understand the dependency of private car, and vulnerable population have a better understanding of the mobility of vulnerable populations. For the first year, we started with telework. We did the comparison data collection methods, hypotheses, we set data needs, we started setting up a tool, we did a survey on the interest of using an app, we worked on recruitment strategy, and finally we developed our open source application, mobility. For the data collection methods, we compared like the classical method surveys and numerical methods. For the cost is high for the classical method, but the numerical is cost of developing and maintaining tracing application. For the classical method is usually carried out a typical day of the year, but for the numerical can be used several days, weeks, or month over many seasons. For the data reliability, data are reliable, good sampling and extrapolation technique for the classic methods, and we don't have enough feedback to determine the quality of data using an application. For the analysis, long time processing for the classic, shorter time for the numerical one, and for the coverage can cover more or less several target populations. For the classical one, for the numerical, it's difficult or impossible to cover certain populations. For the hypothesis, we put two kinds of hypotheses. The first one was like for assumptions on the data collection method used, why people will use an app. On the first scenario, we said that they will have the control over the data and they can delete them as they wish. Second scenario, we said they will get the personal benefits from the data. Third scenario, we said they can win gifts if they use an app or participate on experimentations. Second part of hypothesis, we put assumptions on relevance of the data collected. First scenario, we said working from home will decrease traveling. Second scenario, we said working from home will increase traveling. Third scenario, we said working from home will increase traveling distances during weekends. And from the fourth scenario, we said the moves of people during COVID have an impact on traveling distances nowadays. For the data requirement, we'll need data for a whole week, traveling data of people working from home, and traveling data of people who can work from home, but they work in the office. We'll get a number of trips dates and times, distances traveled, the use mode, and purpose of the trips. When we started setting up a tool, we did the application benchmarking. We saw what's available, like TraceMob from Fabrique de Mobilité France, TravelView, and the XMap. We focused on an open source application, which is TraceMob. It's the only one open source, and we started our work from there. While we were working on the app, we did a survey on the interest of using an app. We did here like an A/B testing method to know what is the interest of people to share them data, like transportation conditions, environment preservation, or knowing the carbon footprint. Like I said, what is like the interest of people sharing the data, the commitment of people to use data collection application, and whether they agree with it, with its operation, the challenges that make them refuse to use this tool, to get to know the early adopters. And we did 2 tests, questionnaire in face-to-face fair, and our testing campaign on Facebook. And here are some interesting outcomes. The issue that generated the most interest among respondents was environmental preservation. Number of survey respondents on one day at the fair was equal to number to survey respondents during 2 weeks of publication on Facebook. At the fair, 82% of respondents said they would be willing to use a mobility data collection application, compared to 48% on Facebook. At the fair, 68% of respondents wanted to be beta testers versus 39% on Facebook. 76% of respondents said they are ready to use the app for 1 month, and 21% for 1 week. And 94% of respondents agreed with the way the application works, running all the time. And the challenges can be summarized as privacy, data security, and digital pollution. For the recruitment strategy, we have already 30 people agreed to use the application. And in order to increase that number, we will collaborate with companies to reach out to the employees. We already did with ASAQ, CGI, Sun Life, National Bank of Canada, Lotto Quebec. And I will conduct maybe a web campaign and target high traffic areas for recruitment campaign. This is our app we developed. It's an open source application based on the application emission developed by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. It's the same base as TraceMob. And it's the application, it's mother of both applications. In this application, the user can know his carbon footprint, his number of calories burned, distances traveled by mode, number of trips per mode, travel time by mode, and trip speed by mode. Our application is called Mobility, and it's available on both stores, Google and Apple, and it's on test right now. First, like the user have to install it, have to accept the term of use. And very important to get to allow the application to access physical activity manually, and to as well as the location to allow it all the time. Once it's done, there will be a questionnaire showed. Answers like first question, is what is your email address? Please enter your gender. What is the range of your age? What is your address, postal code? Did you move during COVID? If yes, what was your address? what is your activity sector? In your situation, is teleworking possible? If yes, we'll ask, do you work from home? If yes, we'll ask how often, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, or 5 days a week. Once it's done, the user can see the screens. First is diary, where we can show his trips, the dashboard with footprint, calories, and distances, and the profile. You can choose the language. It's in English and French. You can ask to delete the data or leave comment. Once a trip is made, you will see it appear on the diary with the written draft. Like the mode is not detected yet, but the user can validate the mode or can indicate the mode used, like walk, bike, car sharing, or something, and the purpose as well. And once the data are analyzed on the server, the user will see the trip analyzed, like sometimes car or 91% of car and 8% of walk, and we'll see as well informations on the dashboard, like carbon footprint, calories, and distances. Thank you.
Thank you, Rauf, for this presentation. So is there any question? And do you plan any gamification features?
We are thinking of doing this, but there is already a startup doing it in Quebec, and in our program we are working with them, like to accelerate them and to help them reach the target. Then we don't want to be like concurrent. We don't want to be in this level on gamification.
Okay. And could the mobile app be promoted by the Canadian Health Ministry with kind of incentives? Or, I mean, it's good for health if you walk, if you go with your bicycle, and if you take public transport more than be on your own with your car.
I would say we wish that could be possible, or can be possible, if like the health ministry will work with us on this. But for the moment, it's not the case.
So Pierre Plindou, you said GECO Air de l'IFPEN also. I don't know that. What is it? Maybe it's a mobile app. I'm gonna check.
Yes, it's a mobile app. Yes.
Thank you. I didn't know. Thanks for the share. Is there any question?
If there is any question, you can send me an email or reach Bertrand to do this.
Get in touch.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Rauf. So Caroline, it's up to you. This is your turn. You're going to talk about modality, and so that's the first day of this new platform. It's very, very new.
Exactly. Yes, it's the perfect day for me to be with you. I'm very happy to be with you to share this experience. So I'm Caroline, and I'm gonna try to share some ideas about what can we do more with the data, because as you know, there is already lots of stuff which is done with mobility data. This is not something new in this field. So before introducing the demo and so on, a few words of presentation. I'm one of the co-founders of Datavise. Datavise, we are a small studio specialized in human data interactions, which means that we are designing and developing data visualization tools for different industries, but we are very familiar with the transport industry, and we are familiar with its visualization challenge, so people's flow, mobility data. We know this a lot. And during the last months, we have been working on an internal project, research project about mobility data. So it's called Modality. We just released a first case study this morning about Grand Paris network. So we make a comparison bit of this network in 2021 and in 2030. It's in collaboration with Navithia, who provide the 2030 data. So thanks a lot, Bertrand, again for that. But before making a proper demo of the tool, let me explain where it comes from. So first, originally, we just wanted to make a simple GTFS file viewer. So GTFS file, probably most of you already know what is it, but it's the type of data file that describe how a public transport network works. So you can find all the lines, the description of the lines, the station, the stops, the schedule, every trains going from point A to point B at what time and so on. So it's very interesting because it's standardized across the network. Also because there are more and more GTFS files that are open data, thanks to a regulation context that is very encouraging. Because, for example, in France, local authorities are obliged to publish publicly the data that describes the public transport offers. So it's a good basis for internal research project because there are lots of data available. And also, from our side, from our perspective at DataVise, from the perspective of data visualization specialists, it's very interesting because those GTFS files, they cannot really be understood by general public without some help. It's very massive data file. You cannot open them with your spreadsheet. So you really need someone to translate these data files into information. And even for mobility experts, if you are not a technical expert, it's quite complicated to work with those files. So that's why we wanted to try to do something with those GTFS files. We wanted to try to make visible the invisible information inside those files. So we started by making this constatation that there are already a lot of applications that are using these GTFS files. There are a lot of applications that are reusing the open data about mobility offers. But most part of the time, it's application for the general public. It's a mass application. So you will find application about journey planning, about how you go from point A to point B without your car, timetables of your favorite lines, alerts for the next bus or the next train, real-time traffic conditions, and things like that. And it's really a success. It's really a good point that all those applications are here and they can help you go your way without your car. It has been built by private organizations most part of the time, thanks to open data. It's facilitating the usage of public transport, so that's perfect. But the question we had is this the only way to put this mobility data at the service of citizens? Because what we see is we use the transport offers data to improve the way we consume transport offers. So it's encouraging citizens to consume more of the existing offers. So citizens are placed in the role of consumers. They are given the responsibility to better consume mobility, to leave the car at the house and to use public transport. So of course, it's important to educate the general public. But we do not ask the question of the quality of these offers, of the adequacy of these offers to the challenges we face at the moment with the ecological challenges. So it's a bit like saying we are going to promote organic foods, for example. So we are going to make the organic foods easier to find in stores, but we don't ask the question of how these organic foods are produced. So it's exactly the same, in my opinion, in the mobility field. The change should not come from the citizens only, even all the more if they're perceived as consumers, but it should also come from the way we design the mobility offers. And so our question was, how can we use open data to better design the mobility offers? How can we help people in charge of designing the mobility offers thanks to the open data? And this is exactly where data visualization comes into play, so our job. Because data visualization makes it possible to better understand the situation for a whole area, not just one journey, not just from one address to another. Data visualization makes it possible to reveal the impact of some choices, some political choices, infrastructure choices, and also data visualization is something that will help you test, try, learn, so improve decision making. So now, we are going to look together how this can happen with the concrete example of a prototype, of our mobility prototype. So I'm going to try to make a live demo because it's more fun. So here we are with the live tool we published this morning. And so what you can see here is the Grand Paris network, so Paris and the suburbs, with all the lines, the bus line, the trains line, the tram, and so on. So you can have a look at each line, you can have a look at the station, see the connections, and so on. But what is interesting for us is how it's going to change in 2020 versus 2030. Because as you know, if you live in Paris, there is a big project to build some new lines from now to 2030. So there will be seven new lines, 4 new metro lines, 3 new tram lines, and some extended lines. So this is the basics. This is the raw material: lines, stations, stops, frequency. And what can we do with that? So what we can do with that is first calculate what we call isochrone maps. So the idea of an isochrone map is, it's, for example, if you look for a specific address, for example, let's try where our office are in Paris. So we select a place. So here we have all the grid. The map is a grid of small plots. It's about 400 meters by 400 meters. It's a few streets. And so we can see how many times it takes to go from this plot we selected to the other plots. And so as you can see here, we have in blue the isochrone map. So all the plots I can reach in 60 minutes by public transport. And I can play with that to change the maximum travel time I want. But yes, in Paris, 60 minutes is quite something common. So I can click in some other plot and I can see the isochrone map for any plot on the territory, on the map. But now what is interesting is how the new networks, the new line, what's going to change for this particular address. For example, here I'm quite in the center of Paris, and in 60 minutes I can reach 8,000 plots, which does represent 73% of all the workplaces in the area, because we are calculating from this address how many workplaces, places where there is a job, I can reach. It's easier than counting plots. It's more interesting. So in 2021, I can reach 73% of all the workplaces. And if I now go to 2030 with the new lines, it's going to improve a bit my accessibility to the territory and to the workplaces. And I can make the difference and see the difference with the green plots here that are the plots that were not accessible in 2021 and that will be accessible, newly accessible in 2030 thanks to the new lines. So as you can see here in close to Nation, this part of the city, it's not going to change a lot. But if you go somewhere else, for example, here close to Sevran, it's a bit better. And so you can explore what's going to be changing for each plot. But here, as you see, we are trying plot by plot. So if you don't have a specific address in mind, that's not interesting. Let's try to have an overview of all this information, which is where data visualization is the most interesting. Here we have the same map of Paris and the suburbs, but on each plot we have a color. And the color is reflecting the accessibility score, the number of workplaces you can reach in 60 minutes. It's exactly the same as the Isochrone map you see just before, but synthesized into a color. And the bubble inside each plot is the number of inhabitants. So this way you can see places where the accessibility is good, for example, here in the center of Paris, and the population density is high, and there are some other places in the suburb where the accessibility is a bit less good, a bit worse, and the population density is still high, and so you can explore this way. But you can also explore this with filters. For example, if I want to focus on plots where there is not really good accessibility, less than 50%, 50% workplace accessible, and for example, I want to find places where there is still a high population density. So here we are, we can focus on the places where if I need to do something to augment the current network, to improve the current network, maybe I will put some alternatives here. So this is for the current network, but you can also play with the scenario. So the 2030 scenarios provided by Navicia. Navicia provided us with a GTFS scenario for 2030. We will see the difference. So as you can see, the map is slightly lighter, which means that there are more workplaces accessible, and we can now see the difference the same way as we did before. But here for each plot, we see how many gains, how many workplaces are now accessible in 2021 that were not in 2021, in 2030 that were not in 2021. So we see the gains where all the places where there are lots of gains, for example, for those kind of plots here around this station, Clichy-Montfermeil, which is a new station that will be built up in 2030, people will gain access to more than 50% workplaces that were not accessible before and that are now accessible. So you can see the map of people that benefit the most from the new network. And so that's interesting. If you, for example, you can cross this with, for example, the standard of livings, the revenue, if people are richer or poorer. So you can see the average gains for each categories of plots. Or you can also, for example, select the plots where the gains are higher and see where they are, and things like that. So at the end, the idea is that a GTFS data files can contain a lot of information, and it can really help people make scenarios, but it's complicated to use, and all the calculation needed to produce map like that, it's very long and very heavy to process. So there is in our opinion, it's interesting to provide a platform when you can do this calculation very quickly and you can display the map very quickly to be able to test scenario or just to be able to inform about the current scenario. So that's what modality tool is for. It's our intent to improve the design of mobility offers thanks to data visualization. And for the moment, it's still a very, very new and research project. And we really hope we will have some feedbacks from people working in this field to help us improve the project and make some new tests in other cities than Paris. Thank you. I think I've been a bit long, but yes, thank you.
That's okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Caroline. Well done for this great job. So I have a question from Patrick Gendre. how would you compare your tool with Conveyal analysis? Do you know Conveyal? It's
I know Conveyal. Yeah, it's a really close to Conveyal. Maybe Conveyal is more specialized on very specific calculation. They go further on the scenarios and, for example, you have some trust intervals for some scores. And so maybe the focus of Conveyal is more on the calculation of the scores, where our focus is more on the communication of the score and the usage of this score to help decision makers. I think the way I understand Conveyal, they are working with expert people in the field of mobility. We want to work with people in the field of mobility, but not the technical one, the people taking the decision at the end, because those are people that don't understand mobility data alone. They need some tools to do that. So that's what we'd like to do.
So is it you want to do more things like product and you as I understood, you said Conveyal is more special project, not product.
Not really. It's more. I think Conveyal is directly working with experts for producing expert analysis, and maybe the data visualization we can provide is a good help for people less expert but more oriented into decision making. But I would love to have a discussion with Conveyal. We have learned a lot from their blog post and from their tool. We consider they are really the master of this game, and they are really better than us in some calculations. So we have a lot to learn from them, and yes, they are really good.
Well, you have a lot of people saying great work. I'm astonished. So you will have a beta tester, I think.
Yeah, sure. Do not hesitate to send us your feedback, Twitter, email, or anything. We would love to have your feedback.
So, do you have any questions? So you are okay we speak about it on social media? Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, sure.
They already did this morning.
Yeah, I see someone is liking the hexagon shape. Just to make a small comment on the hexagon, it's very convenient because it's beautiful. It makes beautiful map, but also for another reason, which is the hexagon. When you make a grid with hexagon, the center of each hexagon is at the same distance from one hexagon to the other, which is not the case if you are using square or other kind of shapes. So when you are working on mobility and distance visualization, it's very relevant. Yes, H3 system, exactly. It's the Uber team system we are using here, which is also very convenient.
Okay, I didn't know the name. H3 system. So, Antoine from BlaBlaCar, where can I find the link to the beta version? Thanks. If you go on Twitter, that's it. So, well, that's the end of the meetup. So, if there's no more questions, it's time to say goodbye. And thanks for the presentation. Thanks to the speakers and to the attendees. It was very interesting for me. I learned a lot of things. And well, I hope we will get in touch for on another meetup, maybe in March. We are working on that, and maybe in French. We don't know. If you want to present things, if you want to talk about things, don't hesitate to contact me on the social networks or by email. You're welcome. And if you want to organize Open Transport Meetup, there's no problem. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you, Mathieu, also. I know you've got to take your train. And well, keep in touch and be safe with COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.